Welcome to Celebrities Farm. Today we're diving deep into one of the most incredible stories of the American West, a saga of courage, ambition, fortune, and betrayal. This is the story of how $12 and a teenager's determination transformed the largest single-fence ranch in the United States, an empire valued at $725 million. This is the story of Waggoner Ranch. To understand the grandeur of the Waggoner Ranch, we need to go back in time to the 1840s. Texas was an untamed frontier, a land of opportunity and deadly danger. It was in this landscape that a man named Daniel Dan Waggoner, born in 1828, decided to forge his destiny. In 1849, at just 21 years old, after his father's death, Dan took the reins and started his own cattle operation. At that time, North Texas was open territory, frequented by hostile tribes like the Comanche and Kiowa, and infested with cattle rustlers who operated with impunity. There were no laws, only the law of the fittest. It was in these harsh conditions that Dan learned the ropes. In 1853, he staked his first official land claim, 60 acres on Cattle Creek. This date, 1853, is not just a number, it is the zero mark, engraved in stone at the ranch's entrance, symbolizing the founding of a future empire. Dan had no formal education, but he possessed a practical intelligence and an extraordinary business acumen. He reinvested every profit into more land, expanding his domains slowly but steadily, always pushing his herds westward in search of new pastures and water. He was building more than a farm. He was laying the foundations of a dynasty. The true turning point in the ranch's history has a name and an age: William Thomas W.T. Waggoner at age 16. In 1869, his father Dan gave him the most challenging assignment of his life, a test that would define the family's future. He entrusted his teenage son with a herd of 5,000 wild longhorn cattle and a team of cowboys to drive them over 400 miles across dangerous Indian territory, now Oklahoma, to the railroad tracks in Kansas. For this monumental expedition, young Tom received from his father only $12 in cash, 50 riding horses, all reportedly sore and exhausted, and his father's blessing. It was an almost inconceivable responsibility for a young boy. Tom Waggoner himself later joked about the situation. There I was, with over 5,000 wild steers, 50 sore-backed horses, $12, and 16 years to live. Against all odds, Tom not only survived the journey, but thrived. He delivered the herd to Abilene, Kansas, and sold the cattle for a colossal profit. He returned to Texas no longer a boy, but a man, bringing with him $55,000 in pure gold, a fortune that today would be worth over $1.2 million. This legendary feat cemented his place as heir and partner, transforming the modest ranch into a business with the capital for explosive expansion. With capital from their legendary cattle drive, the D. Waggoner and Son partnership entered an era of aggressive expansion. In the 1870s and 1880s, as the Wild West reached its peak, the Waggoners relentlessly bought or leased land. The arrival of barbed wire changed the game, ending the open-range era and ushering in the fence wars. The Waggoners were pioneers, fencing their vast holdings to protect their livestock and water sources, eventually leading them to consolidate over 500,000 contiguous acres, creating the famous largest ranch under a single fence. But the land held another surprise, a liquid black fortune. In 1902, just months after his father's death, W.T. Waggoner was drilling a well for water, a cattle rancher's most valuable resource. Instead of water, oil gushed from the well. Initially, W.T. was deeply angered, seeing it as a pest contaminating his cattle's water. However, with the rise of the automobile age, he quickly realized he had stumbled upon a gold mine. He seized the opportunity, built his own refinery on the ranch, and integrated oil production into his operations. Oil revenue became a financial pillar, helping the ranch survive droughts and economic crises that bankrupted many others. The joke that at Waggoner Ranch there's no groundwater, only oil, became a symbol of this empire's dual vocation. If cattle and oil were the financial brain of the empire, horses were its heart and soul. W.T. Waggoner, scarred by his experience with poor quality horses on his first major journey, vowed that his cowboys would always have the best mounts. This promise evolved into one of the most influential horse breeding programs in the world. He was a founding member of the American Quarter Horse Association in 1940, cementing his family's role in the development of the quarter horse breed. His passion was so great that in the 1920s, he invested $3 million to build Arlington Downs, a state-of-the-art racetrack near Fort Worth, dreaming of transforming Texas into a horse racing hub. But the crown jewel of Waggoner's breeding program was undoubtedly a stallion born in 1944, Poco Bueno. The name, which means very good in Spanish, proved to be an understatement. Poco Bueno became a legend, a world champion cutting cattle sire and a sire of champions, siring 405 registered foals. He was so valuable that he became the first quarter horse to be insured for $100,000. When he died in 1969, the Waggoners honored him in a unique way. The great stallion was buried standing in a concrete grave near the ranch's main entrance, with an imposing 4-ton granite monument marking his final resting place, a lasting tribute to the family's equine passion. Building and maintaining an empire of this size was no easy task. The Waggoners faced challenges that would have destroyed smaller operations. In addition to border conflicts, they navigated complex political battles. In the early 1900s, W.T. negotiated a grazing lease in former Comanche territory with the famous Chief Quanah Parker. However, political pressure to terminate these leases grew. In a masterful public relations move, Quanah Parker invited President Theodore Roosevelt to a wolf hunt at the ranch in 1905, hoping to win his support. Roosevelt had a great time hunting on horseback alongside the Comanche chief, but in the end, politics prevailed and the Waggoners lost their lease. Beyond politics, nature posed its own tests. North Texas is a land of extremes, from severe droughts to devastating blizzards. To ensure the ranch's survival, W.T. invested heavily in water infrastructure. In the early 1920s, he partnered to create 2 massive reservoirs on the ranch, Lake Kemp and Lake Diversion. These lakes, along with thousands of smaller tanks and ponds scattered throughout the property, ensured that the cattle always had access to water, even during the worst droughts, such as the Dust Bowl of the 1930s and the severe drought of the 1950s. While other ranches failed, Waggoner remained steadfast, hydrated and productive, a testament to the incredible vision and adaptability of its leaders. Perhaps the greatest threat to Waggoner Ranch came not from outsiders or nature, but from within its own fences. As with many great fortunes, subsequent generations did not share Dan and W.T. Waggoner's passion and work ethic. W.T. had 3 children who survived into adulthood: Electra, Guy, and E. Paul. In an attempt to teach them how to manage the business, he divided the ranch into sections and gave one to each. The plan failed. His heirs preferred the fruits of their wealth to the hard work of ranching, handing over management to professionals and living lives of extravagance. Seeing the risk of fragmentation, W.T. reversed his decision in 1923, consolidating everything back into a single trust, the Waggoner estate, ensuring that the ranch would be managed as a single entity after his death. For decades, the arrangement worked. But by the end of the 20th century, the estate was divided between 2 branches of the family that despised each other. On one side, Electra's descendants wanted to sell the ranch. On the other, E. Paul's descendants wanted to maintain the legacy. The dispute erupted into a legal battle that dragged on for more than 20 years, becoming one of the most bitter inheritance battles in Texas history. The relationship was so toxic that the cousins, whose offices were across the hall, communicated only through memos. The ranch was paralyzed, and the threat of a court-ordered auction that would tear it apart became frighteningly real. With the ranch on the brink of destruction, the pressure of an impending auction forced a resolution. In 2014, the family finally agreed to put the Waggoner Ranch up for sale, but with one condition: it had to be sold whole, intact. The asking price was astronomical, $725 million. The package included the 525,000 acres of land, over 1,000 oil wells, thousands of head of cattle, hundreds of horses, all the equipment, and even the mineral rights. In 2016, a buyer was found. Stan Kroenke, an American billionaire and sports magnate, owner of teams such as the NFL's Los Angeles Rams and the Premier League's Arsenal, and one of the largest landowners in the United States. The sale was historic, marking the first time the ranch had left the Waggoner family's ownership in 167 years. Most importantly, Kroenke purchased the entire empire, ensuring that its legacy as the largest ranch under a single fence would survive. Today, under the management of Kroenke Ranches, Waggoner remains a colossal, cutting-edge operation. He maintains a herd of about 10,000 breeding cows, primarily a Hereford Angus cross, and farms over 26,000 acres to produce his own feed, becoming self-sufficient. The tradition of cowboys on horseback continues, but now aided by modern technology, managing an infrastructure that resembles that of a small town. One of the most fascinating facets of the Waggoner legacy is something they created almost by accident. For over a century and a half, the family strictly prohibited commercial hunting on their land. This policy transformed the ranch into a de facto wildlife sanctuary, a haven where generations of animals lived with minimal human pressure. Today, Waggoner Ranch is home to extraordinarily dense populations of trophy-quality white-tailed deer, wild turkeys, quail, doves, and countless other species. It's a thriving ecosystem, a glimpse of Texas as it once was. Stan Kroenke's new administration not only recognized this treasure, but also committed to protecting and enhancing it. They implemented holistic wildlife and habitat management programs, removing over 150,000 acres of invasive vegetation to restore native grasslands and improve the ecosystem for local wildlife. The Waggoner Ranch Saga is a powerful lesson in vision, resilience, and the complex legacy of family. From a $12 bet to a $725 million empire, it proves that the greatest fortunes can face the greatest battles, but that a true treasure, when preserved, can last forever. What did you think of this epic journey through America's largest ranch? Which part of the story impressed you most? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if you're fascinated by grand estates and stories of rural empires like this one, sign up now for Celebrities Farm and activate the bell, because you won't want to miss our next video. We'll explore a farm that's taken technology to a level you never imagined possible. I'm counting on you. See you next time.